Hello everyone, welcome along to another Gran Turismo 7 Daily Race C race and strategy guide. This week we are heading to Germany and we are heading to the Nurburgring Grand Prix Circuit in particular. It's Group 3 machinery once again, maybe overusing the Group 3 cars in Daily Race C a little bit, but given how popular a category is, I don't think there will be too many complaints. For this race, we have 10 laps to get round, tyre wear is at ×5, fuel is at ×6. Just the racing medium tyres available. There's no mandatory rules that we are aware of. BOP is on, damage is light, it's a formation start, and slipstream is real. Now, if those settings seem familiar, it's because it's exactly the same settings as we had for the Group 3 race around Suzuka around 3 to 4 weeks ago. On that occasion, the strategy was very much split between doing the no-stopper in the BRZ and maybe using something faster around the track like the Corvette for the one-stopper. It kind of very much came down to what kind of driving style or whether the fuel saving suited you. So will that be the same story for the Nürburgring? Let's jump on board the Subaru BRZ and do a no-stop run here, saving the fuel, and we'll have the answers to all those questions by the end of the video. So as I said, we're in the newest addition to the Group 3 category in GT7. It's the Subaru BRZ. Now this car at Suzuka, when it was the no-stopper, was very, very capable. Basically, it's pretty good on fuel and it's a little bit of a twinkle toes on the tyres as well. That's going to be important in the second half of the race. So my fuel saving strategy for this one was to basically, just before the 100 metre board into turn 1, put into fuel mix number 4, and basically run fuel mix number 4 until we exit this corner here. We'll come into the kind of more power part of the track and then use make sure we had the full extent of the power for the second half of the lap, but short shifting all the while as well. And I found this was a fairly efficient technique to make the fuel last for those 10 laps in the BRZ and easily complete the no-stopper. So coming up through the Schumacher S here for the first time, we are actually going to jump to the midpoint of the race because I want to point out to something that I've noticed when I've been doing the test runs here, and that is that the laps remaining counter appears to be a little bit misleading. So as we cross the line here with 5 laps to go, our laps remaining is saying we have only 4.7, 4.6 laps worth of fuel. But if you look at the percentage value, we are bang on target at 50%. Now, this used to be something that happened at the occasional track on GT Sport, think Maggiore, think Fuji. So it is something that's been kind of carried over from that game. But yeah, just sort of learn to use that percentage value. When you get to the halfway point, completing lap number 5, you should be on 50% fuel to be on target. It will sort itself out on lap number 8. As you go into the last 2 laps, the sort of laps remaining counter should sort itself out, so do make sure you check that at the end of lap number 8 just to make sure you're on target. But I think for this one you are better off using that percentage value, 10% of fuel per lap. It's fairly easy to work out for this particular combination. But coming to the end of our no-stop run here, fairly solid, couple of sloppy laps in there, laps 7 and 8. Into the 59s where we should have still been in the 58s, I think. But all in all, a fairly solid run for the no-stopper in the BRZ. 19 minutes 43.8. Tyre wear towards the end was becoming a little bit of a factor, certainly affecting the lap times, but certainly at the same time something we should be able to deal with fairly comfortably. So that's with the no-stop run here. Let's move on to the one-stop, no fuel saving run now. I was intending on doing 3 different strategies. I was going to do a no fuel saving run, just taking on fuel, and then I was going to do another no fuel saving run, taking on the fuel and a new set of tyres. However, when I seen how long I lost here just taking the fuel on, it was pretty clear that there was no point doing an additional run and taking on the tyres as well. So this run here, going to come in, take on whatever fuel we need and not change the tyres. And you can see we came into the pits here 17 seconds ahead of P2. Now, how much time are we going to lose as we make this pit stop to the AI car is going to give us a very, very good idea as to whether this strategy can actually work. So, stationary for nearly 6.5 seconds, actually over 6.5 seconds to take on the fuel. That was 40% of fuel we took on there. All in all, we lost 23 seconds in the pit lane, and well, you don't have to be playing GT7 or a strategic master to work out that you're not going to make up those 23 seconds just by being able to go full throttle on the fuel. You're not going to lose 23 seconds fuel saving We've not got the advantage of fresh tyres or anything either. As we come here to the end of this this second run, having made a pit stop for the fuel, I think the tyres are probably even in worse shape, because obviously we've pushed a little bit harder on this run. Obviously saving fuel, you've been a little bit more kind of gentle with the car. You can sort of look after the tyres a little bit more. Just naturally looking after the tyres, if you like. But as we come across the start finish line here to complete this run, you can see the lap times were in the 56s for a couple of laps on the opening stage. When the tyres were still fresh, we could burn that fuel. We did have quite a significant advantage over the pace of our no stop run, but when it's all said and done, we were actually 17 seconds slower overall now. Add in 5 seconds for taking on a new set of tyres. Yes, you're going to set some nice lap times towards the end, but you're never going to make up that time. So we never actually bothered with the third run, taking on the fuel and the tyres, because it just wasn't worth it. One thing I would like to point out about this BRZ, if it is the car you go for, it does not like the kerbs at all around this track now. Particularly the last chicane, I had a few issues, but also into the Schumacher S, so that's the very fast left-right kink and midway through the lap. It doesn't like the kerbs there either. Sometimes it will just kind of throw you slightly offline, sometimes it will be a little bit more severe like this, where we ended up facing backwards. So definitely something to bear in mind with the BRZ. Obviously runs quite low to the ground. It definitely does not like those kerbs. So is there any alternative car choices? Well, because we never did that third run, because we never did the tyre changing run, I decided I would jump into a couple of other cars. Now, in GT Sport, my go-to car for the Nurburgring was the Toyota FT1. Now we're coming here to the end of lap number 5. You can see lap times comparable to what we were doing in the BRZ. Now we are a little bit behind here on the fuel, by a couple of percent, but that's definitely something we could work on to sort of sort out. Literally just jumped into this car here to see how it feels. So in terms of lap time, absolutely there with the BRZ, not quite there on the fuel, but yeah, definitely a car I think you could make work, and sort of bodes well that there should be more than just the BRZ available to use in this race. The next car we jumped in was one of the cars that has been very, very strong around Watkins Glen, and that is the Genesis X. It's not a G70, Hugo. Not a G70, and I think there's a few other people that chin me on that as well, but yeah, all good, all good. We made a little bit of a mistake in the strategy guide at Watkins Glen by describing this car as a G70. We are in the Genesis X, and well, this car did surprise me. Now, lap time wise, it doesn't look like we've really set the world on fire here. That's because we haven't. The Genesis is very, very tricky at some corners. We never actually got a clean lap in here. I think we could easily have done a low 57, but the car does try to kill you several times per lap, but there is definitely pace there as well. But on the fuel front, the Genesis X is very, very good indeed. Now, for both the FT1 and the Genesis, I was basically using the same fuel saving technique as I did in the BRZ. So put into fuel map 4 before the 100 metre board for turn number 1, and running fuel map 4 all the way through the first sector. And yeah, the Genesis here is probably a good couple of percentage up on fuel. I reckon you could probably use the Genesis X without using the fuel map, just short shifting through the first sector, and I think you'd then be even quicker than the lap times I'm demonstrating there. But all in all, from what I could see, definitely looks like there should be more than just the BRZ available. Now, obviously we never tested the FT1 and the Genesis all the way to the end, so I guess the BRZ, very strong chance it's going to have a tyre wear advantage towards the end of the race, so it could well still be the car. But I'm quite encouraged that there should be some other cars that we can use, try and make something work. And of course, when we live stream this, we won't just choose the one car, we'll jump in some different cars and do some experimentation and things. Well, the Supra come back into the fore here. The Supra was a very strong Group 3 car, but nobody's really mentioned it for a few weeks. And of course the old favourite, the Subaru WRX may well also come back into the fold. I do believe it's quite decent on fuel. But just to recap on the strategy, this one is very much a no-stopper. It's not like it's the same settings as Suzuka, but it doesn't quite have the same attributes in the way the race works out. I think that's for a couple of reasons. One, in Suzuka, I don't think the BRZ was the best car around the track. The more suited the power cars like the Corvette, etc. But For something like Nurburgring, it is very much a handling circuit as well, so the BRZ is a handling car, so it does work well in that regard. It is much easier to save the fuel around the Nurburgring compared to Suzuka as well. You're not losing anywhere near the same amount of lap time or a fuel saving lap as you did at Suzuka. So for those reasons, unlike at Suzuka, the no stopper is absolutely destroying the one stopper. So yes, very much a no stopper for this race here. Learn how to save the fuel. It's not very difficult at all, to be perfectly honest with you. Somewhat aptly, we're about to move on to a lap guide here. I'll give you a little bit of a demonstration as in what I was doing to save the fuel. Nothing particularly complicated here. Basically, running down to turn number 1 just before the 100 metre board, I put it into fuel mix number 4. 100 metre board is your braking reference for turn 1. Can't really see the apex here in cockpit view, which is a little bit of a problem. I'm not a big fan of the cockpit in this Subaru BRZ, I must admit. But we're going to run fuel mix 4 all the way through the first sector and actually the beginning of the second sector. Now this first sector is all about just getting your line right. Don't carry too much speed into some of the corners because it will sacrifice your line for the next corner, but once you kind of get that rhythm, the first sector is not too bad at all. Now for this fast left-hander, you're looking for the wee strip of tarmac that is the start of the short course of the Nurburgring as your braking reference. Get the car over to the left-hand side to get the best line for this right-hander. Now this is where we put the car back into fuel mix 1, but into the power part of the circuit. Come down the hill, you've got the kerb on the left hand side, the grey kerb is your braking reference. Make sure you square this corner off. This car does have a strange tendency to understeer, so you're making sure you get the front of that car in there to make sure you don't sort of end up in the gravel on the exit of the hairpin. Coming up through the Schumacher S, do be careful of the kerbs. As we said earlier, this car is not good on the kerbs at all. The start of the green kerb on the right hand side for this left hander here. Get the car over to the left hand side to give you the best line for this right hander. Fourth gear as we come through here. Again, another corner with this car with its kind of strange understeer will try to run wide, so just be wary of that. And coming towards the final chicane just before the 100 metre board, I kept the car in third gear for a little bit of stability. You can see how much the car is moving over those kerbs. A lot of time to be made up, but very easy to spin off there as well. All the whilst doing some short shifting as well. Make sure you are short shifting maybe around about 20% on the bar there, to make sure you are making that fuel last. But that was a 57.6, that was the fastest lap we did while fuel saving. And yeah, very, very brief conclusion. This one is very much a no stopper. You cannot make up the time in the pits with the fresh tyres or with the fuel, burning the fuel off. So definitely a no stopper in this one. It's very likely it's going to be a bit of a BRZ fest just because of how good it is on the tyres towards the end. But in terms of lap times, I think other cars can certainly come to the fore. It's just a question of what is their tyres going to be like towards the end. But yeah, should be an interesting enough race. It's been a wee while since we've done Group 3 around the Nürburgring. It wasn't a very common combination as a daily race in GT Sport. It was for FIA, to be fair. Actually, believe it or not, I think it was nearly 3 to 4 years before it came up as a daily race C in GT Sport. It came up fairly quickly in GT7, I think it's fair to say. But yeah, join me for some live streams during the course of the week. We'll have some fun with this one. We'll use the BRZ, we'll use some other cars, we'll see if we can find out some stuff, we'll see if we can make the tyres last, see if we can use one of our best attributes of being pretty decent on the tyres to get some results in some unfancied cars. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed the video, hopefully it's been useful in some way, shape or form. If it has, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks now.